Hi, it's Kassy, and today we are going to make a fun home decor piece out of this cute little frame I got for 99 cents at the craft store, and we are going to decorate it with a bunch of amazing Sizzix supplies. So let's get started. I'm going to use this layered stencil set. There are 4 stencils in here, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to use them a little bit unconventionally, but I really love this. This was my inspiration for this piece here, so we're going to work with this full set. I've also got some other mixed media supplies here. I have gesso primer, dimensional paste, I have some luster wax. I like to put things in front of me and just sort of play and see where it takes me and let the inspiration and creativity flow. So we're going to move everything out of the way. We need to start with priming our base, because this is just, as you can see, just plain wood panel, frame here. So gesso, if you've never used gesso before, it is a primer. It is great for setting the base for whatever you're working on. It could be paper, if you're maybe working in a journal or or just on a piece of paper and you want to use paints and sprays and stamp on it and different things, and you want those things to behave in a specific way that you are already familiar with. Gesso is a great way to prime your surface so that you can put other things on top of it and have it behave in the correct way. So it's very useful and helpful for today. This is white gesso. Gesso does come in lots of colors, but white is definitely the most popular. I will say gesso is a little bit different than just, a regular white acrylic paint. A lot of people ask me if they don't have gesso, can they just use white paint? And it is really a little bit different. It does have an acrylic base for acrylic gesso, but it has a tooth to it so that you can work on top of it. And sometimes acrylic paints, depending on the style and the type, there's so many different kinds, but sometimes it has maybe a glossy finish or something, and you wouldn't be able to really work very effectively on top of it. Again, there's lots of different kinds of acrylic paint, so it just depends, but gesso is definitely something that any mixed media artist should have plenty of in their stash. So this is pretty much dry, but I'm going to set it aside for a little bit and work on the inner piece here, which is this stencil set. Okay, we're going to do some really fun stuff with this. So I've cut a piece of paper down. This is white cardstock from Sizzix, but if you can see, there is a bit of a sheen to it. It's got like a gold pearlescent sort of tint, and it's super beautiful. So this is going to be the bird and all of the details here, and you can see it fits perfectly right in our little shadow box here. Okay, so we're going to work on this, which means I need to bring over my Stamp and Stencil tool. I love this tool so much. It has changed my life, and I just can't live without it ever again. So I've got a bunch of ink and sprays. We're going to do some really fun mixed media stuff here today. So we're going to use this for its stencil capabilities. So I'm going to remove this top lid. All right, this is for stamping. And I've got a sticky grid on here. I think it's still got some stick left to it. I'm going to keep using it, but just know that you can peel this off and put a new grid down when your grid is not really sticky anymore. Okay, and then I like to work kind of lower on the board here. So I also have this tool that allows you to, if I do it the right way, and the right way, you'll know the right way because you want the pegs here to be at the bottom. I'll bring it a little closer. So there's 2 pegs there, and that's going to hold our stencil in place and keep it positioned in the proper way. Let me move some of my other goodies out of the way here so I've got room. Okay, and so I'm just going to place, let me show you the top here. So I've got all of these little pegs that sort of stick up. Okay, can you see that? So I'm going to place this where I want it, and this is going to allow us to put the stencil in the exact right spot every time. Okay, so next we're going to get our stencils out, and I'm going to do these out of order because a little bit anyway, because we're going to do some fun, crazy stuff with it. So this picture really helps you to see the order of things. So this first one really is the background with the branches and the base of the bird. Nope, sorry, just the branches. Then the second layer is the base of the bird with the front branch. Then this third picture shows some of the detail and then more of the detail. And so if you go in order, that's kind of how it goes. So you can look at these pictures and say, okay, I want certain colors for this one, and you can start to layer it up. But we're going to do things a little bit out of order because we want to add dimension to this project. So I'm going to keep this off to the side for reference so I know what I'm doing. I am going to start with the branches first because we are going to put some ink down to create a nice background for this. Notice though that this is much bigger than this. So this whole area is 6 by 6 and this is 4 3/8 squared because that's the size it needs to be to fit inside of our shadow box here. Okay, so I want to make sure. So I'm lining my paper up with where the bird is and where I want things to end up in the end. Okay, and I'm making sure it's nice and straight. And so then I'm going to hold this kind of together because I know I want my bird off to the side here and I want some of those branches showing. Okay, so then I'm going to put the stencil into the 2 pegs, okay, so it's nice and lined up, and then I'm going to stick it all down together. And then I'm actually going to lift this because the one really cool thing, I'm going to take this back off so I can make sure this is straight, okay, and I can see for sure that it isn't. The other really nice thing about these sticky grids is that it has a grid on it, so you can make sure whatever you're putting down here is going to be nice and straight if that's what you want, and see how nicely it lifts off of here, the paper. It's not going to damage your cardstock at all. It'll be just fine. So I'm making sure that it's nice and straight, lined up, squared up. Okay, so now my paper is perfectly straight. Now I'm going to put my stencil back on and we'll get to work. And now I'm going to just kind of make sure it's all stuck down so when I'm doing my ink blending for this first step, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so for the background here, this is just going to be the twigs. I'm using Catherine Pooler ink. I really like the Sandcastle and the Catching Rays together. I generally like to use a couple different colors of ink just to just to have a little bit more depth to it and dimension and not have it be so plain. Okay, so we're going to use, I've got my handy tool case here, and we are going to use an ink blending head for our multi-tool. I'm going to grab a handle. You'll notice in here, just if I take a quick moment, I've got all the tools here, I've got the handles over here, and look at all the tools are now at my fingertips here, which is really lovely. I just take this whole folded case wherever I go, and then if I want to create, I've got everything at my fingertips. It's really pretty fantastic. So I'm going to these just click together. So I've got the handle base here, and you can put different tools on either end if you haven't used these before. And this is my ink blending tip, and of course this comes off and they're replaceable. But here's what you do. You just kind of put one end in and then you twist, and then that's it, and then you're good to go. And when you're done, you twist back the other way and take it off. So really easy to use, great tools. All right, so let's start with a little bit of the yellow. That wants to move a little. So I'm just going a little bit here and there. I'm not getting it all over, and I barely touch this ink because it's so juicy. Okay, so there we go, and then I'm going to go into the brown. And sorry, these colors are called Catching Rays and Sandcastle. I don't remember if I said that yet. So I'm just kind of swirling a little. So some of this brown is going to be a little warmer than the other brown because I did the yellow first in certain spots. Again, that's just going to add a little bit more dimension. And you can keep going over it, just lightly tap into the ink here. Keep going over it until you have the coverage that you desire. I do want a little bit more of the yellow, so let's just warm it up maybe right around that bird. Here we go. A little bit more. I think I want it to be a little darker on the edges. And notice I'm using the same blending tool for the yellow and the brown because they're both warm colors and I'm blending them anyway, so you don't really need to be switching your sponge applicator. Okay, so this looks fantastic. I am going to lift the stencil, keep the paper in place. Here we go. That's a great start. I love this. I am going to hit this with a heat gun really quick just to make sure that all of that ink is dry before we move to the next step. Normally that ink would dry immediately, right? Ink on paper dries really fast, but because this is a coated paper, it just takes a little bit longer for it to kind of soak into the paper and be dry and not smear. So that's why I took the heat tool to it, but we should be good now. We're going to move on to the next step, which would be actually stencil number 2. And I forgot to mention before, but all of these stencils, when you get a layered stencil pack, they have the etched into the top section here. They have the number so that you'll always know what order to go in if you are going in order. Okay, so this stencil now you can see has the base of the bird and the branch that it sits on. Okay, so we're going to set this into those pegs, put it right down onto the paper, make sure it's stuck around the edges. Perfect. It's perfectly lined up, ready to go. Okay, so first what I want to do is put some color blending into this area. So I'm actually going to clean this pad off because I don't want any brown, but I do want yellow. So I'm going to use the same pad. I'm just tapping it onto a piece of paper towel to get it really nice and clean. I just want to make sure that enough of that brown is out of there so it doesn't get on my bird. And then I'm going to use Tiara. This is a slightly brighter yellow from the other color that we just used. And I'm going to go over the whole bird. I don't mind if a little bit gets on the branch area because I'm going to do something different with that. It's going to be fine. Okay, this is just going to give us a really nice base for this bird. All right, I think that looks fantastic. I'm going to put this ink away and move to the next step. Now for the branch, I am going to use over coffee, and not going to clean my sponge here. Don't mind. But I don't want to get it on the bird. I just want it to be on the branch. Oh, I got a little bit on the bird. Let's see if I can wipe it. It's okay, that bird is going to be covered with other things too, so no big deal. Okay, so I put a layer of brown down as the base, but I want to add a little dimension to it. So I've got some embossing ink here, and I'm going to clean my foam pad again, make sure I'm not contaminating the other ink pad, and I'm going to just dip in here, and I'm going to rub it over the top so we can put some embossing powder on here. I think that's going to look super cool. The more dimension you can add to your projects like this, the more interesting they will be. So, okay, put this aside. Now I've got some embossing glaze from Tim Holtz. This one is Vintage Photo. And I'm just going to put it right down, right over my stencil and everything. I don't mind. It's fine. Okay. And then I'm going to have to tip it sideways and get the excess off of here. Okay, so I've just got a paper towel I'm going to tap that into. And then before I heat it, of course, I'm going to take my stencil off. I'm making a big mess here, but it's okay. Mixed media sometimes gets messy. That's all right. I do see some on the bird. I'm going to wipe that off. We definitely don't want to emboss this. We just want to wipe it away so we keep our stencil nice and clean so we can use it over and over again. I'm going to put the rest of this embossing powder back in the pot. So before we move on, I'm going to have to emboss this so that it doesn't move when we keep working. Okay, so you notice that this Sizzix heat embossing tool has two settings. One's a lower one and one's a higher one. The higher setting is really great for thermal embossing. Okay, so now can you see it's got a shine to it? It's got a little bit of dimension, pops off the page just enough, and it's a little bit darker than the brown in the background, and that's what I wanted. And notice I left it on my board, on my stencil board, on my sticky grid, okay? So because we're not done stenciling, and we want to make sure this stays in place till the very end. And I'm definitely going to have to replace the sticky grid after this, and that's okay. All right, so moving on to the next step. Now, we've got layer 3 and layer 4, and what I want to do is skip layer 3 for now. We're going to do something different and special with this layer. We're going to move to layer 4, which is the center of this bird, okay? So we're going to just put it right on the pegs and smooth it over. Make sure we get some sticky around here. And again, it's perfectly centered and lined up where it needs to be. Now for the middle of the bird, I'm going to be using Aquatini and Martini from Catherine Pooler Inks. I want this bird to be kind of bright and vibrant and fun looking, okay? So these are both colors that I'm going to be blending together anyway, so I'm going to switch my my blending foam here, but I'm keeping that one for the other color palette. So I have one for warm, one for cool, kind of. And so here we go. So now I'm going to start with the green because I want less green. And notice I'm barely putting any ink on this foam pad, and it's really going to work great. Okay, so I'm going to start up here, kind of swirling around, and then go down here. Okay, here we go. All right, and then I'm going to just dab off, even though it's fine. You don't really need to when you're doing something like this, because we're using colors that are so similar. But I want more intensity of color in the center here, so that's why I'm kind of focusing there. And then I'm just letting it fade into that lighter color. Just don't want any lines. I don't want it to look streaky at all. I want it to look nice and blended. Okay, so then I'm going to go back with the green and go back over this top. Oh, that's so nice. So nice. Yeah, yep, that's perfect. So the center is more of the aqua color, and the top and bottom are more green, and I think that's going to give us a nice layered look here. Okay, I'm done with this layer. We're going to lift it. Looking so good. Oh, I love that pop of color right in the middle there. It looks fantastic. That is dry now. We are ready for stencil number 3. And this one we're going to do very differently. So I'm putting it in the pegs here at the top. I'm making sure it's stuck down nicely. We're all lined up and ready to go. I do need to get some new tools out of my, oops, I got a big old mess here. So we're going to get another tool out. So I need another handle, and I need my palette knife. And when you get the set with the palette knives, you get a small and a large palette knife, so that's really nice. So you have choices here. So I'm going to use the smaller palette knife because I've got a small area that we're working with. We don't need a huge palette knife for this. Again, it's just going to snap in to the base here, into the handle, and you're ready to go. And I have dimensional paste. This is Sizzix dimensional paste. It's fantastic. It's basically a modeling paste. It's going to dry white and solid, opaque, excuse me. Okay, so you can see here, it's really nice and creamy and buttery. It's fantastic. You are just going to put some on your palette knife, just a little bit to start. You can always add more, just like you're frosting a cake, okay? So you're going to have a little bit on the end of your palette knife. On the back side, I recommend, not on the top, all right? And then we're just going to scrape it over the top of the stencil, and we're going to cover all of the openings of the stencil. Okay, make sure it's completely covered, and then we're going to scrape the rest back into the pot to use another time. And then, actually, I didn't get great coverage on the tail there. Okay, that looks really good. So just do it until you see that it's nice and even. A little bit of texture sometimes is nice, and you don't want it to be super thick, okay, because that will just make it take longer to dry. And just even having this little bit of dimension here, this thin layer is going to really add a lot of interest to your piece in the end. So then when you're done with using your palette knife, just take a baby wipe or a paper towel or whatever and just wipe it off and make sure you get all of that paste off of there. And the other thing I'm going to recommend, I'm not ready to take this off yet, but when you take your stencil off, make sure and wipe it down really well when you use any kind of paste or gel or something like that, because that will just help keep your stencil working well and not get all crusted up with that stuff in the long run. Okay, so before we take the stencil off, I've got this paste here, and I don't want the paste to stay white. I want it to be a color. Now you could have mixed color in with the paste before I put it down. I could have done that, but another really fun way to do this is I've got some spray here. I have some Distress spray stain from Tim Holtz. It's Crackling Campfire, and you can just spray over this. But we're just going to give a nice light spray, okay? And then, whew, that's so pretty. I don't want to put too much, okay? We're going to leave the stencil here. I'm going to put the heat gun on the low setting just to sort of set it. We don't want to leave the heat gun on the stencil for very long in any one place. We don't want to warp the stencil at all, but we want to dry a little bit of this spray before we lift this, okay? Okay, this is also going to give us a sort of uneven look too, so it depends on the look that you're going for and what you want in the end, the way that you do it. But let's lift and see what we get. Ooh, this is so cool. Okay, this was the last stencil that we're using. I'm going to set this aside. I'm not taking this off just yet, but I really want to show you how to clean your stencil to make sure that it doesn't get wrecked from this process. Isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh. Okay, so we put paste on here, and that's the part that I really want you to get off. Also, we did put some spray stain that is water reactive, so we also definitely want to get that off because we don't want that to affect any future project, okay? But this paste really, if you had really intricate areas in the stencil, it could get clogged up in there, and then it could wreck your stencil. So I just want to make sure that you know, like, it's really important to clean your stencil when you're using any sort of modeling paste or gel or like glitter gel or anything like that. So notice I'm just flipping it, I'm going both sides and making sure that it's nice and clean. And then I'm going to get a paper towel here, and then I just make sure that all of that ink is off of there. And I will do that to all the layers of my stencil. So now it's nice and clean. Okay. So now I'm going to bring back the stamp and stencil tool, and this looks really great. I do want to dry this a little bit more. I like that it's not perfectly like flat orange color. I think that looks really great. Okay, we have done all the stenciling we're going to do on this piece of paper, so now it's time to lift it off of the sticky grid. Wow, look at this. I love it so much. It's super pretty. And remember, we did some ink blending, we did thermal embossing, and we did some dimensional paste and sprayed through it to really give it some really awesome dimension here. I'm going to put this aside, but actually before that, just to show you, this peels off really easily. This is definitely not great anymore. It's got spray and paste and all sorts of stuff on here. So I'm going to peel this off and dispose of it, and then just get a new piece the next time I'm going to start working. So I've got some gray texture roll here. And it's just such a beautiful color. It's a beautiful warm gray. So I'm going to emboss it with this wood. It's like it almost looks like a really distressy wood grain, kind of. So I'm just cutting off a piece that will fit through that embossing folder. And I'm going to run it through the machine. This is really durable. I am going to spray it with a little bit of water because we're running it through a 3D embossing folder. It's going to help it receive more of that texture. So the 3D embossing folders use the base plate and then the top cutting plate, and that's it. And look at how pretty. That is gorgeous. I also want to cut some flower, maybe, for this project. This is a Biggs L die, Sizzix die from Alexis Trimble. From her collection, and look at all these beautiful flowers you can make with it. And on the inside too, you can see she gives you instructions on how to assemble. And you've just got a bunch of petals. You have the centerpiece and the bottom and everything. All the elements that you need to build your own flowers. So I think that's really fun. You can make tons of different kinds of flowers. So we're going to play with some crepe paper and some tulle today. I love tulle flowers. I think because we have that green and blue in the bird, I might like to bring some of that forward. So I think I'm going to use this turquoise crepe paper. And the beauty of using these dies is that when you're using a thinner material like crepe paper and tulle and all of that, you can definitely cut multiples at once because these are individual petals that we're cutting. So we're going to want to cut several of them. So this way we don't have to run this through as many passes. Okay, so I'm going to fold this in 4. Let's see if we can get 4 out of one pass. I'm going to cut 2 different petals here. All right, now finally I'm doing the center, and I'm doing this bright green just to kind of go with our theme of the bird. And this longer strip that has all the little fringe pieces on the end, first actually I'm going to cut it to that length. We don't need a very large piece because we've just got a small flower we're going to work with here. So this length will be just fine. But then we're going to fold it in half, and we're going to place it on this cutting plate so that the folded edge doesn't quite hit this cut line. Okay, and when you have this in front of you, it'll make more sense. You'll be able to see that. But we're just going to put this down and run it through, and then we will have the center of the flower. So now we could open this up. I'm not going to, well, I guess I'll just show you. But see, it didn't cut down this, down that edge. So now we have a double piece. So when we roll it up, we're just going to have a lot more frillies for the center of the flower. All right, okay, and finally we're going to cut a couple of these lace trim pieces. These are from Tim Holtz. These are thinlits, and there's a larger version and a smaller version of each of the 2 styles. So we're going to cut both of the smaller ones. And I'm going to use the gold texture roll. I think that will look really, really beautiful for both of these. Okay, look at how beautiful that is. That's so gorgeous. I'm excited to use it. Okay, so the next step, really, I've got all these things kind of off to the side. We're going to work on assembling the flower and getting it ready to put on the base, and then we'll start putting it all together. We're almost done. So it's hard to see, but I've got a bunch of tulle petals here, and then I've got a bunch of the turquoise petals. I think I kind of want to take a little bit of this aquatini and just put a little bit of color on the edge of these petals. So I'm just taking my sponge that I was using earlier and just kind of wiping that green off, and then I'm going to lay my petals out, just these aqua ones, and I'm really not going to be even too particular about it. I've got a bunch of petals. I don't even need all of these petals. It's nice to have extra. You never know when you're just going to want to build a flower, right? And So I was able to get 4 layers of this, and probably I could do more, I just didn't try, but 4 layers of this crepe paper through with that die, and that's pretty awesome because look at all these awesome petals we have now to work with. So I did some medium size and some smaller size. I don't know which one I'm going to end up with for a flower. Maybe I'm going to make a couple flowers. I just really like to have choices, so when I'm building my final project, I can use what I want. Okay, whoops. So I'm laying all these out so that they, that I can just throw some ink on them real quick. So this is the Aquatini again from Catherine Pooler, just barely tapping in here, not even pressing down. This really does soak up a lot of ink, and these are super juicy, right? So I'm just going to hit the edges. And the crepe paper is nice because it, you know, because it's so textured that you're able to just get some ink right on those little bits of texture. Just adds a little more dimension. Woo, this is so pretty. I love it already. Okay, we're going to start with our centerpiece. And I do have my Sizzix glue gun here. This is a mini glue gun. It's super awesome. It has a power switch so you can just have it plugged in always if you want to and then just turn on and off. It's got a nice needle tip point there so you can get precision, accuracy in your gluing. So it looks like we're ready to go. So I really do like to use hot glue when I can for this. You might want to protect the tips of your fingers if you're sensitive to this heat. I just put a tiny bit and then I start rolling. And I just kind of glue as I go. So I put glue, you know, maybe half an inch down. And then I roll, and then I put a little bit more glue down, and just a tiny little bit. I think I did about an inch or so. And keep rolling. Doesn't have to be super tight, but you want it to be somewhat tight so that you have a nice center. Now, if I was going to make a bouquet out of this, I would need to have a wire in the middle of this so that you're wrapping around a wire, but this is just going to go on our project, so I don't need it to have a wire or a stem at all. It's just the bud, okay? So just make sure that you know that. Okay, so we're going to keep going. Just the tiniest bit of glue. And just keep rolling. And once you get to this point, you really don't have to have your finger anywhere near that glue. So just be real careful. Don't burn yourself. All right. Keep it folded in half. It kind of wants to open up as you go. So just make sure you're paying attention to that and keeping it folded so it's not opening up on you. And I'm just going to go right to the end now. And I'm just going to roll it right to the end. Ooh, stuck to my finger a little bit. It's not super hot, but I also have a pretty high pain tolerance for heat there, so I might not be a good judge. Okay, I'm going to keep my glue gun plugged in. I'm going to get another stick going in here. These are just mini glue sticks. Okay, so we're ready to go. And now we have this cute, I'm just giving it like a second to kind of set and for that glue to cool. And now we have, look at this cute little center, lots of little frillies. Super, super duper easy, so quick. Okay, so now we can start building our flower around this. I'm going to, and it's very thin, I'm going to lay my flower center down on my mat here. And I'm working on the Sizzix craft mat, and it is fantastic, especially for a project like this where we're using hot glue because it's silicone, so that glue is not going to stick to here forever. It's, you know, it's protecting you, it's keeping you safe. It's just a really fantastic thing. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on this center, just on this one side, and then I'm going to stick down a couple of petals here. Oh, it's very delicate. Okay. Probably if you're going to work with tulle, I mean, it's super fun. I highly recommend it. But definitely you want to have all the petals separated and sort of ready to go, because this glue does dry pretty fast. But this is what I'm doing. Okay, so then I did a quarter turn so that half of the petal that's already stuck down is on top here, and then the other half is clean. And then we're just going to put glue down so we're overlapping our petals. Okay. So that is our tulle layer. Let's see if you can see it. There it is. Isn't that pretty? So delicate and lovely. We're going to do the same thing now, but we're going to go around with our crepe paper petals. And we just want to make sure that the side that we put the ink on is the side facing into the flower. So I'm going to have them all face up right now. And notice I'm putting them off to the side here and just having them ready. Okay. And then just take our glue gun and we're going to go around and do the same thing. Now we've got 8 petals again, so we're just going to do the exact same thing we did. Put 2 petals per side. This one obviously is going to be easier to see. Okay. 1 petal, and we're just overlapping the petals, not putting them completely on top of each other, but definitely having a nice overlap. And then we let that glue dry and then move on to the next side. All right, now we have our flower done. So I'm going to just fan out the petals. They're not perfectly like in order, and I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted it to be kind of wildflower-ish. Flowers are never perfect looking, but look at how cute this is. It's got the nice tulle inside, which adds a little bit of just delicate texture. Really, really cute. I love. Okay, so I have decided that I want to put some yellow on the inside of this frame just to brighten it up. And I've got some Sizzix creamy acrylic paint. This one is called Limoncello. It's just a really nice soft yellow. And I am just going to put it right inside this frame and paint it real quick. So I'm just going to put the paint actually right inside the frame. This is the only place it's going. I don't mind if it goes over that edge there because I am going to be covering this top part with something else. Oh, this is just such a lovely, bright, cheerful, pastelish kind of paint, yellow. Oops, wrong end. So just giving it a quick once over, nice thin layer, just to add a little bit of brightness and color in here. And putting that white gesso down first really allows this yellow to be nice, the nice bright color that it actually is. If we put it right on the wooden, the raw wood, it would have dulled the color a bit. So it is really important to start with gesso when you can. Look at that's done, and that is beautiful. Okay, and while that's drying, I'm actually going to cover this outside edge with agave from the same Sizzix line of paint. This is a beautiful muted green. Kind of almost a sagey green, and it's just going to go around the outside edges. Okay, so now we've painted the inside and the outside of the frame. I want to add this awesome gray textured textural that we made, and I want it to be like the wood part of this frame. Okay, so we just need little strips of it. So now we're going to glue this down, and I'm going to use the hot glue. And I'm just going to put a thin layer all the way up and down here. It's going to squish a little bit as I go. Okay, this is good. And then I'm going to stick my paper down. You can even use this other paper to make sure it really gets squished down and not going to hurt my fingers. And I just need to make sure it's covering each edge. And if you get a little bit excess, you can either rub it off right away or you can peel it off later, roll it off later. It's really easy to do. Okay, so that's good. We've got one side done. I'm going to use a straight edge to cut this piece because I want it to be pretty precise. Yep, that looks great. Okay, and then I'm just going to go around the outside edge first. Let's see, where do I want to start? This edge is great. It only goes on the inside. So I'll start here. I'm using my straight edge, and I'm just using the edge of the frame as a guide to cut the excess paper off this edge here. And this is a really nice way to get a really good straight edge without having to worry about cutting the paper exactly perfect from the start. Okay, once you're done cutting all the edges so that they all are flush with each edge, I still like to go over it with the piece of sandpaper and just smooth these edges out so they really become part of the frame and you don't have any like really raw or rough edges. Just kind of helps integrate everything on the inside and the outside. And that looks really great. Ooh, I'm excited. Look at how pretty that is. Now I'm ready to stick the this piece into the center. I'm going to use hot glue for this as well. We've got it out and it will work just fine. All right. Just kind of putting it everywhere, okay? All right, and I pushed it through just to make it go faster because I really want to get this stuck down in here. And then I'm going to use just something to make it nice and flat. I don't want to touch this with my bare hands because I've got paint and ink and all sorts of stuff. So I'm just using this as a protective way to get that in there. Okay, it's stuck in there. It's not going anywhere. Look at how pretty. Even if you just did something simple like this, it's just so lovely. Okay, so next I want to put some luster wax, and I have this in gold, and I just want to bring out a little bit more of the texture in this frame. Okay, so I'm going to use my palette knife to get a little bit of this out, and I'm going to put it right on my mat. I don't really like to put my finger right into this pot because you have oils on your finger and over time it could cause a little bit of molding in there just because it's just because of the nature of things. So just put a little bit out in your pot here, onto your mat, excuse me, and you just want a little bit on the edge of your finger, and you're just going to very lightly brush over your texture, and that's going to help bring it forward. And just keep putting some more on your finger, rubbing it very gently over the top. You can go around the edges too. That also helps to bring this all together and make it look like a frame that actually belongs on this wooden piece and isn't just some paper that got glued down. It really, really does help it all come together. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm very excited about this. I do really like to put it on the edges too, a little bit heavier. I'm even going to put a little bit on this outer green part. Just going to antique it just a little bit, and it helps all of it sort of come together and be more unified as a project. Really does bring out a lot of this great texture in this wood too, which is really fantastic. It's so pretty. Okay, looks good. I'm going to show you up close here. So there, can you see how that texture on the top of the frame and even on the edges here just comes out just a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to add some finishing touches, and we will be all done. Okay, so I think I'm going to cut this at 2 pieces and get this glued down. I'm just going to put glue right on this frame. And I know you can see it through right now, but when it dries, it will be totally clear. I'm tearing some tulle here. I really love using tulle in a distressed kind of way. I like to tear it and just get little pieces of it. Okay, like this piece is pretty good. You can stretch it and just make it look real grungy. And it just does some really interesting things. So I feel like we need a little bit more of something here. So I think I'm just going to put this tulle right in here. That looks so good. Okay, so I'm going to bring the glue gun back in here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue in this corner. You're not going to see any of it, of course, because we will have that flower there. I want a little bit coming up here, so I've got this other little piece. I'm going to put this up there. Oh, I'm excited to be using tulle in this project. It's so fun. All right, putting a little glue on the side here, sticking it down. I've got to use some kind of different tulle here. Okay. Tulle for my tool. That's funny. Okay, so I'm going to put some more glue. I'm going to put a bit of glue down here now because I really want this flower to stay in place. I just put it in that corner. And then I'm going to put this flower here and just kind of squish it in and hold on for dear life here. It really does not take long to dry. So, okay, really quick before we're done, I am going to add this second piece because I feel like I wanted it more down here. So I'm just going to get real crazy here. I've got some glue. I'm going to dip the top of this only in this glue, and I'm going to fold it under. It's hard to see what I'm doing, but I'm going underneath that first layer of this lace, this gold die cut lace, and I'm alternating so you can see the scallops are offset. Okay, and then I'm going to dry it, and I'll cut off that edge. Okay, we're almost done. I want to add a little sentiment right here. I think that will be really nice, and it says, "Let your dreams take flight." It's just kind of perfect. Let's see how it fits and if I like it. I am going to use my stamp and stencil platform because I want to make sure that I have it exactly stamped perfectly, so if I need to go over it more than once, I can do that. I'm going to remove this. I have a pack of sticky grid sheets here, and we're just going to get one out, and I will show you how to put this on. Oops, here we go. Okay, so first you'll see this side, you can really see the grid a lot more than you can on this side. So you're going to flip it so you can't see the grid as well. And you're going to peel this. I just do the top half to start, or the top third or whatever. And then I line it up. You can see there's like a groove here. I line it up with that and make sure it's nice and straight. When I start, and then I just peel this back, and then it just lays perfectly nice and flat. All right, and then I have this top layer. Now you can save this top layer and recover it when you're not using it to keep it, you know, nicer longer, but I'm not that neat of a crafter, if I'm being totally honest. So I just like let it live on here until it's done, and that's how I do it. But you can do it whatever way works best for you. Okay. So now we've got our stamp and we've got our paper, and I am going to stamp this in black ink. Okay, we have perfect coverage. Yay! All right, so now we can take this off of here. I'm just going to cut this out by hand. It's a nice straight line, and we're going to adhere it right to the bottom of our project here. And I'm going to use hot glue for this. So I'm actually going to put the hot glue on the back of the sentiment so I know exactly where it's going to be. And just a little bit, not a lot. There we go. Get that string out of there. And then I'm going to kind of tuck it under palm to make sure it's really stuck on there. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Here's our final project. Look at that. Oh, that flower is lovely. I love the tulle, the dimension of the bird, everything. We used a ton of Sizzix supplies here today. All of them will be linked in the description if you want to get some of these supplies so you can make your own bird shadow box with the beautiful flowers and all of the lovely details. I hope that you found some inspiration today and had fun making this project with me. If you made this project, please go share it on social media. Find Kassandra Louise Designs and share it so I can see what you've made. I can't wait to see it. If you want to learn more about Sizzix products, you can visit Sizzix.com, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.